Well, $450 million a year. That's how much the state says it will cost to run the immigration detention center, Alligator Alcatraz. That is a lot of taxpayer dollars. As I-Team Chief Investigator Mike Magnoli discovered, that figure might just be a ballpark as the bill keeps growing.
So just think about the things that could happen at a prison that would be majorly disruptive. Someone escapes, the inmates riot, the guards go on strike. Well, the scenario that I'm asking about here, what if there's a hurricane barreling towards Alligator Alcatraz? The state would have to spend a lot of money getting everyone out of the path of the storm. Is that money that should be reserved for victims of the storm in its aftermath? No one at the top wants to talk about this right now. Florida's Division of Emergency Management manages Alligator Alcatraz, along with federal agencies like ICE. Earlier this month, the facility opened, and officials say thousands of undocumented immigrants will be held here temporarily before being flown back to their home countries. Smart then to build this on an airport site. Back in 2021, I visited the Dade Collier Training and Transition Airport because I was intrigued by the original vision for this place. A throwback to Pan Am and glamour in the sky, this was going to be the most futuristic and the biggest airport in the world. Those plans are long gone, and now Alligator Alcatraz is up and running. Many Florida Democrats call it a stunt, and they say it's an expensive one. If what Governor DeSantis says is correct, that Alligator Alcatraz will cost $450 million annually to operate, that's 3 times the amount it would cost to keep migrants in buildings we already had, according to Florida State Senator Carlos Guillermo Smith.
There's a huge financial cost to taxpayers to actually place a giant tent city on top of the Florida Everglades rather than utilizing existing detention centers. Look, the average cost to the state of Florida to incarcerate an individual into one of our state prisons or correctional facilities is approximately $27,000 per year. If you just do the back of the napkin math on the cost of the Everglades camp, $450 million to taxpayers with a maximum capacity of 5,000 individuals, you're looking at over $90,000 a year per person.
Florida officials say some of the cost will be covered by FEMA, but details on that reimbursement are scarce so far. But it's noteworthy that Governor DeSantis signed an executive order to approve state spending for Alligator Alcatraz, categorized as disaster preparedness and relief. That's terminology we would expect to hear in the days before landfall, or in the days after a hurricane. And I've been asking Florida's elected leaders about what's the plan for Alligator Alcatraz in the event of a hurricane. There's no cover at the facility, it's totally exposed to the wind, and it's very susceptible to flooding. Governor DeSantis says the tent city at Alligator Alcatraz could withstand Category 1 and Category 2 conditions, but if it's a Cat 3, yes, they'd likely have to evacuate detainees. But no, there's not an estimate for how much that would cost.
What questions would you put to the administration about how much it's going to cost to move those pieces around?
Well, first of all, let's talk about how much it costs to keep those pieces there. That was done it was done by the governor, not with the consent of his state legislature. $450 million a year, and I ask you, how can that be better used here in Florida? Lots of ways that I can think of, because it is a gimmick.
You know, people are like, what happens if a hurricane hit? And I just think to myself, this ain't our first rodeo, okay? We know in Florida, anything is susceptible to have to be evacuated.
We know this much. You're going to need a lot of buses to move those inmates, and then where are they going to go? You need to find another location for thousands and thousands of people.
As a reminder, hurricane season does peak in September. That was Mike Magnoli reporting. Now, a little more on Alligator Alcatraz. Here are 3 things the I-Team discovered while digging into public records from the state about the cost to build the facility. Florida is spending $22 million on porta potties at the camp. That's going to a company called Duty Calls. Now, to make roads into the camp and surround it with fences, the state spent $25 million. Details of the contract that the state enters into are typically subject to sunshine laws and freedom of the press, but in the past few weeks, the state has scrubbed the documents about Alligator Alcatraz from the Florida Department of Financial Services website. So, in other words, there are no bills available for us to look at anymore.